Welcome to our brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader, and tonight we're going to focus on the recent statements made by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and during participation through the video conference on Africa Day, the celebration that took place in the attendance of Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdel and the Minister of Higher Education Abdel Aziz Qunsuwa at Cairo University yesterday, with the attendance of several ambassadors from the African continent. And as I mentioned, the message that was given and the speech that was given by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi through the video conference on Africa Day, on the celebration of the foundation of the African Union, which took place in 1963, sending messages of solidarity and support for the rest of the African continent. And we'll be shedding more light on the main top stories that took place for today as well, with my dear guest for tonight in the studio, Major General Osama Kaber, the advisor at the Staff and Command College. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
Good evening, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you.
Anytime. First of all, we'll be starting straight away with the main top stories for today, as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received greeting cables from the senior statesmen marking Eid al-Adha. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli extended his sincere greetings and best wishes to President al-Sisi, praying to God to bless him with the continued health and the Egyptian people with prosperity and welfare. Minister of Defense and Military Production, General Ashraf Salim Zahir, also wished that the occasion to carry goodness and blessings to the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, President al-Sisi, to the Egyptians and to the homeland. In a similar cable, Minister of Interior Mahmoud Tawfiq greeted the head of state, saying that the feast is an important source of inspiration, of which the policemen extract the meanings of sacrifice, loyalty, obedience, and determination. In his cable, the Senate Speaker Isam Farid expressed greetings to President al-Sisi, wishing him and the Egyptian people prosperity, goodness, and blessings. He also praised the remarkable progress achieved in the developmental process nationwide. Meanwhile, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the International Cooperation and the Egyptians abroad, Badr Abdel on Sunday hailed the close cooperation binding Egypt and the Comoros Islands. The minister made these remarks as he addressed the press conference with the Comoran counterpart, Mohammed Mbaye, at the conclusion of their talks, which coincided with the first Joint Committee convention. Abdel said that Egypt is keenly interested in providing all sorts of support to the Comoros Islands in various fields. In an earlier meeting with the Mauritanian counterpart, Mohammed Salim Wuld Marzouk, Egypt's top diplomat stressed the strategic importance of the regular convention of the Joint Committee meeting, building on the success of the first Egyptian-Mauritanian Economic Forum. Developments in the Middle East featured prominently at the meeting, with Abdel reviewing the Egyptian determinants on the regional crises, the forefront of which is the U.S.-Iranian negotiating path, and the security and the political changes in Africa, especially in the Sahel and the Horn of Africa regions. Separately, Foreign Minister Abdel and the visiting Yemeni Foreign Minister Shaya Mohsen Az-Zindani chaired the 9th edition of the two-country strategic dialogue. The minister said that holding this round comes at a critical time of the region's history and reflects both sides' keenness on coordinating the visions regarding the crises marring the Middle East. Major General Osama Kaber, as we did see within this top story, and the activities of Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdel for today, meeting with several of his counterparts from Yemen, from Africa, the Comoros Islands, and Mauritania as well. We will be shedding more light on the Egyptian-African relations, especially celebrating Africa Day, but to be highlighting one important topic, which are the American-Iranian negotiations. How do you see the latest developments pertaining to them, and especially after the latest developments that we have seen over the past 24 hours and the call that took place between the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi with several leaders from the region as well as the American President Donald Trump.
Right, so good evening first. So what happened yesterday that everybody have felt that something new is taking place due to the crisis taking place in the Middle East, and specifically about the American-Israeli war on Iran.
Yes.
So it seems by the end, and let's speak about Marco Rubio first, because 3 days ago Marco Rubio was heading to Helsingborg in Switzerland, and he made a speech quickly before leaving to Europe, and he said, yes, it seems pretty much close that we are getting to find a good resolution about this crisis, and President Donald Trump is seeking for diplomatic resolutions other than to continue the war in Iran. However, the availability to restrike again is there still. And from that standpoint, we could figure out that Marco Rubio, as a foreign minister, or Minister of State of the United States of America, is trying to deliver something to the international community. Then he hit to the European conference in Sweden. Yeah, that was Sweden, not Switzerland. I'm sorry for that. And since that, we could grasp some of these ropes, trying to understand what's happening. And yesterday we found that Donald Trump, President of the U.S., had made something like 8 or 9 telephone calls with different countries' leaders. One of them is, of course, here in Egypt, and others in the Arab region, and some others in Europe. And he started talking about that, and from that standpoint, we could understand that finally the United States of America have recognized that there are no good use for continuing the status quo of restriking the Iranian territories, because, as we said before, the Iranians seems that they have something in hand. It seems that they didn't get to the point of culmination within war. They still have something like a good reserve of the ballistic missiles.
Yes.
As well as the blockade they have conducted against the Hormuz Strait have affected the whole world. And what made it like much more even worse, that the seize capturing, or the seizing, the blockade of the Iranians by the Americans made it even worse. So by the end, I think the American administration now is trying to turning the diversion of the actions to the right pathway, and I would say within the upcoming couple of days we will have maybe some fundamental or intrinsic major changes within this whole situation. Within that all, I would say Egypt still playing its pivotal role, its very substantial role diplomatically and politically, and we are a spearhead within the mediation measurements and procedures. Yes, we understand that Islamabad now is taking the lead within that, but we have started that, and we're observing and tracking that as well, and let's see what will happen in the very, very near future. Yes, sir.
Yes, and the final top story for today: Egypt and a number of Arab and Islamic countries issued a joint statement rejecting in the strongest terms the decision by the so-called Somaliland to open an embassy in occupied Jerusalem. The statement described the move as a flagrant violation of the international law and directly jeopardizes the legal and the historical status of the occupied Jerusalem. The joint statement expressed unequivocal rejection to any unilateral measures aimed at creating an illegal status quo in the occupied Jerusalem, or at granting the legal status to the internationally unrecognized or the unlawful entities. They stressed that such steps are null and void and have no legal impact. They also reiterated the full support to the unity and sovereignty of the Federal Republic of Somalia. Major General Osama Kaber, how would you comment on the latest update regarding the condemnation by Egypt and several Arab and Islamic nations for having an embassy for the so-called Somaliland in Jerusalem?
Again, the problem actually seems to be like much more stronger when Gideon Saar, the foreign minister of the right-wing government of Israel, have visited Somaliland within last January 2026.
Yes.
And he declared something very wrong at that time. He said, we do give a full recognition of what to be called the new country of Somaliland. The problem in here is that why Mr., if I remember the name very well, Abdurrahman Muhammad Abdullah, who to be so called the head of Somaliland, persist and insist to stay at the wrong side in the history. Where are you going? Until when? Until where? I mean, the man still doing that through Israel. It's the only wrong pathway he have chosen among all the other pathways could be available for him as good chances. This man, he had received the man and started hugging and kissing, stuff like that. This is okay, that's fine. But what's happening now, he's declaring that he's opening his embassy individually against the whole international community, and against all the laws, actually trying to violate that and to put an embassy within the eastern Jerusalem, Quds al-Sharqiyya, which is the main topic and the problem of the Palestinian case.
Could be the capital for Palestine.
It's capital of Palestine. Yes. It's the eastern Jerusalem. So, I mean, the man, he's putting himself by his own wish, his own capacity, in the right side and the wrong side of the history. This is very wrong. Actually, 14 countries now have declared that. Arabic and Islamic countries have declared their great opposing and the refusal of such and political fake action like this one. Egypt, one of them, Kingdom Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Jordan, Oman, 14 countries. And the man is trying to do something. But we can understand that if you look at the timing now, it's pretty much important. You know why? Because look what's happening between America and Iran specifically, and that goes against Israel well. So when something happens strange by that time, you would find something new is popping up on the surface to make sure that we drag the whole intention to something new, trying to ignite another, whether diplomatic, political, or even military problem in some other place. They wouldn't give up doing that. They would fail doing that. And I'm still asking why Mr. Abdurrahman Muhammad Abdullah trying to do something against the international community wish and laws and regulations, standards and measurements. And again, Egypt have refused that before, and we refuse that again, and we have our red lines against that. And hopefully people will get some wisdom before things again blast up in the face of everyone. And I would say Muhammad Abdullah or Muhammad Abdurrahman Abdullah wouldn't be able to have a great, I mean, he's not strong enough to stand against something he might never even came up to his mind before.
Yes, Major General Osama Kaber, allow me to be going to the main topic of the episode for the night, for the daily debate, and the first report for the program for tonight, focusing on the messages of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi sent to the African continent on Africa Day through the Cairo University Dome. We will be starting straight away with the upcoming report, so stay tuned.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi stressed the importance of African solidarity and adherence to international law in managing shared resources, particularly transboundary rivers, during a recorded speech marking Africa Day at Cairo University on Sunday. According to the Egyptian presidency, Egypt's celebration of Africa Day this year highlights the country's historic and contemporary role in supporting the continent, as well as successful partnerships contributing to the goals of the African Union's Agenda 2063. Addressing the African leaders and the people's President Fattah al-Sisi said, "The continent stands on the threshold of a new phase of construction and development, supported by its vast resources and the determination of its peoples to maximize the benefits of those resources." The President added that it is a source of pride that Egypt's celebration of Africa Day this year comes from the heart of Cairo University, this prestigious academic institution, whose influence extends beyond Egypt to Africa and the Middle East. The President praised Cairo University's role since its establishment in 1901 in spreading knowledge, shaping awareness, and building up Arab and African generations. He also warned of the repercussions of ongoing regional and international crises on Africa, including disruptions to maritime navigation, global trade, supply chains, and energy and food security. President Sisi also said that in light of the rapid regional and international developments and successive crises and challenges, the importance of strengthening solidarity and cooperation among our countries becomes evident. The President stressed the need to guarantee freedom of navigation and secure these vital waterways in accordance with the rules of international law. Focusing on this year's African Union theme of water security, the President underlined the need to respect international law governing transboundary rivers. He stated that We affirm the necessity of respecting international law, regulating international cross-border rivers, ensuring their sound management, and adopting an approach based on the governance of African rivers in a way that achieves shared interests and mutual benefit. He added that such an approach would enhance the climate of peace, preserve security and stability, and achieve integration rather than tensions and conflicts. President Sisi reaffirmed Egypt's commitment to preserving the unity and territorial integrity of African states and safeguarding their national institutions, describing this as the cornerstone for confronting the continent's interconnected challenges. The President also announced that Egypt will host the 8th African Union Mid-Year Coordination Summit in June 2026, describing it as an important opportunity to discuss regional integration and advance implementation of the second-year plan of Agenda 2063. President Sisi renewed Egypt's commitment to joint African action and deeper continental integration. He said that as we celebrate Africa Day, we renew our pledge to continue joint efforts and strengthen cooperation and integration among the countries of the continent in a way that fulfills the aspirations of our peoples for a more advanced and prosperous future. Africa Day marks the founding of the Organization of African Unity on May 25, 1963, with Egypt a founding member. The OAU later evolved on the 9th of May 2002 in the African Union, which is made up of 55 member states that represent all the countries on the continent.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Major General Osama Kaber, the advisor and the Staff and Command College. Thank you very much once again for being with us tonight. We have seen the statements, the messages sent by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Africa on Africa Day, celebrating the foundation of the African Union in 1963. Egypt, one of the main partners and one of the main founding members of the African Union. But speaking about the messages of peace leading to development, and we need, in order to be having peace, we need to be having security in the African continent. How do you see this troika, this relationship between peace, development and security, according to the statements that we have seen by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi at the Africa Forward Summit that took place in Kenya in the attendance of the French president as well?
Right. In his speech, the Egyptian political leadership has spoken about the multi relations in between the whole 55 of the African Union, of the very beautiful black rich continent of Africa that we are living in all.
Yes.
So from that thing, he spoke about like too many things, speaking about the safeguarding the status of security and peace, and about the international trade in between the country and the continent itself, between the world and the continent itself. He's speaking about the sustainable development, is still about the renewable energy. He have, like, I think he have held everything he wants to talk about, because he said now the African continent is on the threshold or the stand-off point to start launching itself to the prosperous future that seems ahead. But the thing in here, if you look at this speech, you can drag actually two very important messages.
Yes.
That if you want to stress or emphasize on something which is very interesting, by the way. He spoke about, first of all, about the straits. And because here we understand there is now Bab el-Mandeb, which is actually connected to the African continent from the east. And Bab el-Mandeb is such a strait, not less than in its importance than what's happening in Hormuz, by the way. It's something like 29 kilometers at its like narrowest point or width. And it links up the Gulf of Eden, all the way with the Red Sea corridor, ending by Suez Canal to the Mediterranean Sea, in the eastern side, through Europe and the whole world. And now Mandab is not in a very, very good safe situation, because sometimes we have too many challenges and threats due to what's happening actually in Iran. So here he spoke about that. And second thing is that because a sort of piracy activities have a little bit emerged within the last month, if you understand what's happening there. And actually you have that the joint task force of the international force, like taken something like maneuvering and surveillance, patrolling, maritime patrolling, stuff like that. But it seems that the piracy maybe have found some other channel to have a little bit breath,
Yes.
to bob again on surface. This is very dangerous because that would all affect the stability, the safe situation, and the credibility of the whole continent. That's all. Second thing, in his speech, he spoke about the rivers, the trans-countries rivers. And of course, in between the lines, it's pretty much not vague or not hidden message to whosoever would think wrong about the transpassing rivers through the countries. And here is speaking about the river Nile. They extend something like more 7,000 kilometers, passing through 5 countries, all the way from Uganda down in the south, up all to the north, ending to Egypt and the Mediterranean Sea. So from his speech, besides the sustainable development, the energy, the credibility and the rich resources of the country, of the continent, I mean, and the necessity and needs to have a cohesive situation, multi-relations, cooperation, coordination in between the countries and the continent. But other two things that was pretty much very important from my point of view, at least he spoke about, which is the strait, which is Bab el-Mandab Strait, because it's under threat and challenges up now, and the rivers passing through many countries. And here I'm speaking about the river Nile, and hopefully also again some people in some other places will have the good wisdom to understand that, hopefully that we can safeguard the security and the prosperity for the whole continent.
Yes, exactly. That's a very important point. The share of Egypt of the Nile Water River, something that is being highlighted by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati at every possible opportunity, and more specifically at the African events celebrating Africa Day, one of the main big events celebrating the foundation of the African Union, and to be safeguarding one of the principles of protecting the rights of every African country or every African state, with the attendance of several ambassadors and leaders from different African countries. Do you think that this could be leading to the change, as you mentioned, the change of mind to be thinking with wisdom about the next decisions and to be resorting away from any unilateral decisions, as we did see in the past couple of years?
Very well. And actually we have done a lot of efforts. We have exerted our all diplomatic power with that. But you know, unfortunately that some others will understand that pretty much well. I don't know why. Maybe a lack of experience, maybe a sort of ambitious like dreams. All right, that's just keep it aside. We would say Egypt had been merited by main 3 points from my perception. First of all, that the geopolitical location that we have. As we spoke before, Egypt is to be called an Afro-Euro-Asian transcontinental country.
Yes.
Second thing is that the Egyptian policy is pretty much pretty much impressive, because we are standing, speaking about the diplomacy by the way, standing at the same point from all the international community, even those the countries who had conflicts altogether. No, we have relations with them, and this is something you wouldn't find within the whole world. And this truly, I'm not exaggerating in that. The third thing is that we are always trying within our policy and diplomacy to going for de-escalation the problems other than turning to the confrontation. And that's why the compass only from the whole international community, specifically from the European Union, from the African Union, from the whole world, is turning to Egypt when it comes much more plugged and complicated as well as sophisticated. Through these merited, or these 3 advantage points we have here, and we have the wisdom, we have the experience, we know how to deal with problems and crises, and try to convince people in a very, very diplomatic ways to come to the table and see what could be negotiations and talk and agreements being signed for. Don't go against that, because we are pretty much able enough to safeguard and protect our credibilities, our resources, our nation security and safety. And That's why we'll never give up going through diplomacy.
Yes.
Until it, opposes itself and imposes itself on something that you will never like, but unfortunately you're going to do it. Because we have told you, like before, we have been like exerting too much patience towards you, but it seems that you don't understand, maybe you don't want to understand, so it's all up to you.
And speaking about understanding, there is an agenda for the African Union for 2063, celebrating the centennial foundation of the African Union in 1963. How do you think about the future prospects of this agenda? What are the main goals to be benefiting the Egyptian and the African citizen?
Right, and yes, it was like first named, I think, Organization of, and I'm sure, Organization of African Unity.
Yes.
That was in 1963, then it turned to African Union, I think, in 2003, which means 23 years now, the African Union.
Yes.
But again, Egypt is a leading and a prominent country within the continent itself, and one of the big founders of the African Organization of African Unity. Now we have a very also intrinsic and pivotal leading role within this thing. Plus our multi-relations, diplomatic relations, political relations with the whole country. We are looking at the country now in a very, very new perception perspective, because if you can see some of the country of the continent is going like to the future in a very good way and shape, to good channel. Speaking about, for instance, Rwanda, after the scourge hit there in 1995, if you remember that,
Yes.
Millions got killed. But look at Rwanda now. It's one of the most beautiful countries within the continent. Egypt also is like moving up ahead positively in a very good steps. Sometimes maybe you have some sluggish motions because some of the economic problems, but we are maneuvering that, we are dealing with that, but we are moving also forward. South of Africa, some other countries now, we still have some problems in Central African Republic, but it's a little bit diminishing and vanishing gradually. So Egypt's looking at the continent now, because the continent is pretty much rich. It has it's like numerous and massive big numbers of resources and wealth inside it, and that's why it has been always like under the eyes of the invaders. And now we're trying to consolidate the whole continent from our position like a leading country and one of the founders for this African Union, trying to grasp the whole things in hand, all with cooperation, coordination, moving up all together positively up ahead in the distance to the future with the continent, in a very, very good steps from which we can benefit the whole continents, the whole country within the continent, and for the mutual beneficial profits for everyone there. I think this is the Egyptian vision, plus other countries within the continent look at the same way. Hopefully we can do something good about that. Yes.
Yes, the mutual benefits for the African citizens, something that gives us an idea about how Egypt views the continent in terms of partnerships and in terms of the models of development that we need to be propagating and implementing in the African continent. How do you see this approach by Egypt towards the African continent, and more specifically under the tenure of President Sisi?
Right, and I'd like to stress on that our approach with the African countries within the continent is in at least in 4 domains, speaking about economic domain, speaking about social domain, speaking about agricultural domain, speaking about water resources domain, as well as it's not the military domain, it's the social domain.
Yes.
Yeah, through that, we are opening like mega and conventions and projects in too many different countries within the continent. We are trying to revamp the role of the COMESA, and sometimes we have a good look at the western side of the IGAD also. We have very good relations, political relations with the whole country, except some of these was trying to make some amendments, trying to understand with them, and still having our dialogue channels.
Yes.
As well as we speak about, if you remember that within the last 3 years we have dig too many water wells in too many countries by our Egyptian expertise and the Egyptian engineering going there, and that was pretty much what to be called the Irtwazi or the non-pumpy wells within some of these countries. We are helping even some to build some dams away from the channel route of the River Nile to help them like for sustainable development and to provide and save much more agricultural areas and acres within the countries. They cannot use the water. So we have that all, like these different domains. We are trying to keep up the tempo with those countries, it would like flourish and nourish your role within the continent, and we are going even like much more and more in the future. And let's see, because I think we are exerting too much power and too much efforts actually to come up with the whole continent. The continent is pretty much rich, and it could be one of the most, if not the one in the world, like there's the continent hub, could be in Africa also. In Nigeria now, they are trying to get to Silicon, what they call Silicon Valley,
yes.
trying to do in Nigeria. Nigeria is going on okay. Algeria, I mean, yes, the continent is okay. It's moving ahead and positively in a very, very stable steps.
So Africa has an opportunity to be a global economic force, and more specifically, as you mentioned, that there were in the past the colonial powers, they wanted to get use of that, they wanted to make use of that from the African people, but nowadays there seems to be more opportunities for partnerships and cooperation between Europe and Africa for the benefit of the global citizen, and more specifically, as we did see for the past couple of weeks, the summit of the Forward Africa Summit that took place in Kenya with the participation of the French president and the Egyptian president Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
Exactly, and you know why? Because the whole continent now actually it's also merited by the strategic geopolitical location. When you look at Africa, it locates within the mid of the world. And now between Africa and Europe is the Mediterranean Sea, and suppose now, and of course Europe was one of the they spoke about the colonial era now, but who else were there in Africa? And but now, you know, things change, history is changing, and the country now is reviving again. It's revamping itself again, and now it's like linking up its relations with the European Union. Some of them, like from too many countries, and long way back ago in the history, they still have the relations with the European Union. But this time, it seems that we have a new form, new reshaping for the continent to have its multi-relations with the whole world, specifically through the geopolitical location that we have,
yes.
and the development we are observing and detecting as well, and depicting within the country, like within the continent, in too many countries in the continent, and due to like what's happening through the world, and now we need to be much more awakened, and you know, a quick readiness is a must for the whole country now. Yeah, okay, let's get and get your launching start of point and move ahead, and that's very, very good for the continent, and hopefully that we can observe that pretty much in the very near future, to up to 3 years maximum. Hopefully,
yes. Hopefully. Major General Osama Kaber, the advisor at the Staff and Command College, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
It was my pleasure as usual. Thank you very much for this invitation.
Thank you. And this brings us to the end of the daily debate for tonight. However, I will be leaving you with the latest presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi that took place over the past week, all wrapped up in the upcoming report. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi inaugurated the new Delta project on Sheikh Zayed Axis in Giza Governorate, formerly known as El Dab'a Axis. Following the inauguration, the president conducted an inspection tour, during which he visited water pumping station number 3 and viewed a model of the industrial works and the operation and control system. He then proceeded to the wheat harvesting site. The president concluded his inspection tour by reviewing the productivity of the sugar beet crop. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi made a phone call to Mr. Ali Faleh al-Zaidi, the Prime Minister of the Brotherly Republic of Iraq. The president congratulated the Iraqi Prime Minister on assuming office. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met with Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, Prime Minister, Dr. Mahmoud Ismat, Minister of Electricity and Renewable Energy, and Lieutenant General Ahmed al-Shazli, Advisor to the President for Financial Affairs. The meeting reviewed the status of various projects in the field of new and renewable energy. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met with Mr. Hassan Abdullah, Governor of the Central Bank. The meeting addressed a number of issues related to the performance of the Egyptian economy and the efforts being made to reduce inflation. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received Mr. Ahmed Attab, the Minister of State and Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad and African Affairs of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. The meeting began with the Algerian minister delivering a written message to President al-Sisi from President Abdelmajid Tebboune, expressing his sincere appreciation for the president and reaffirming deep fraternal ties between Egypt and Algeria, as well as the growing relations of cooperation and partnership between the two countries. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi delivered a speech on the occasion of Egypt's celebration of Africa Day.